Call the Plan Commission to order. December 19th, 2017. Notice has been duly posted. Roll call.
Mayor Joe Chilson,
Present.
Jim Benash,
Here.
Jared Holter,
Here.
Jan Brock, Paul Gleason,
Here.
Knut Temte,
Present.
Craig Breitsprecher,
Here.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Approval of minutes of the previous meeting.
So move. Second.
Motion made by Jim Benash, seconded by Craig Breitspecker to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? So moved. Public input. Anyone wishing to give public input, please step to the podium, state your name and address, and you are limited to 3 minutes. Second call, anyone wishing to give public input. Third and final call. We move on with the printed agenda. Consideration possible action on the following items. Public hearing or consideration of an amendment to the Unified Development Code, UDC, regarding the sign ordinance sections 13-6-18 to 13-6-31. Katie.
Thank you. As stated in your packet, with the Reed versus Gilbert Supreme Court case decision in 2015, the majority of the city sign ordinance needed to be rewritten. City staff and legal counsel have worked to draft a new sign ordinance for consideration. We held a public hearing previously on the bulk of the code. Since then, city staff continued to modify some sections of the code, which you see below you, below that in section 13.6.17, 18, and then sections 13.6.23 through section 13.6.25 with some additional standards and new language. I'd also like to note, handed on the printout, there's a new sheet with some highlights. This is some additional language that staff have proposed based on some feedback that we've received previously from interested persons. So as a public hearing will be held, testimony should be considered before deciding on the proposed amendments.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? And I take it that we have no emails or anything of the like?
Not to be written into the record.
Okay. So that portion is now closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Second call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Katie, are there any?
Nope.
Nope, so the public hearing is now closed. What is the wish of the commission?
Make a motion to approve the amendments to the Unified Development Code regarding the sign ordinance sections 13-6-18 to 13-6-31.
Second.
Motion made by Jim Benash, second by Knut Temte, to approve the amendment to the Unified Development Code, sections 13-6-18 to 13-6-31. Discussion. Craig?
Yeah, I'd like to just act in an advisory capacity to the commission tonight. If you refer to the language that staff sent us on page 12, and it's under illumination of signs, and you'll look at item 3, I think that is, under luminosity, which is parent G there. It says, if the nighttime luminance setting, or I'm sorry, during nighttime hours, a maximum luminosity is limited to 150 nits. That's under item number 2 there. And Item number 3 has if the nighttime luminance setting has a limit based on the sign in question being set to display full white, full brightness field, a limit as high as 200 nits for this method of calibration and testing is suitable. I would make a recommendation. We did some testing in the shop last week, and those limits are not attainable under the technology that's available today. Most of the stuff that we use is, in fact, state-of-the-art, and we were coming in at about 350 to 400 nits. So I would advise the commission to make those adjustments to a 350 nit reading during the day. Under Section 2 and Section 3, I would advise the commission to do something that's attainable and set that at 200 instead of, or 400 instead of 200 nits.
Anyone else?
Where do those numbers come from originally, the 150 and 200?
Katie?
We had obtained that from illumination standards, I believe, where is it, Philadelphia, Amanda? Or Texas, potentially. There were recommended standards, so if there are better ones suited for our area, that they can be modified accordingly. That's just where we took them from. So it sounds as though the intent is valid, but if the numbers need to be modified, that is definitely possible.
Just a point of order, would you identify yourself for the transcriptionist, please, counsel?
Attorney Amanda Jackson.
Thank you. Is your microphone on? It is? Okay. Okay, so what is the wish of the commission? Oh, I'm sorry.
Craig,
Go ahead.
this is a question. Okay, is what you're talking about on page 12 at the top the same thing as on page 13 under 2 electronic message center signs under brightness?
No, it's not.
It's not. That's brightness. This is luminosity. Okay.
These are, the ones I'm referring to are standard sign cabinets, okay? And what we did was we tested standard cabinets with white faces with LED lighting.
If what's stated is not attainable, I don't think we should pass it that way. So can we amend it at this late date to, so can you give us a
Now, hold it a minute. Attainable means you can't get to that brightness, correct?
Correct.
So it's not gonna hurt anything if it's in there.
Craig, can you give is there a quick layman's explanation for what those terms mean?
There's a formula by which our staff used, and I don't know what that formula is right offhand. It converts a standard measure of lighting into nits. It's a multiplier that's used. I suspect that this language, originally, having done a lot of ordinance work myself over the years, probably was encouraged by scenic folks, and it's what you might be calling loving something to death. You're allowed to have it, but you're really not, because you can't meet the standard anyhow. And someone who doesn't know the difference, or they've had no input, may not know that, therefore it went into effect, which is unfortunate.
Does I assume 150 is a lower level of light than 350. I'm not reading it wrong. So were those numbers achievable with different types of fixtures, different types of lighting, but not with LEDs? Is that where that would have come from?
I can't answer that.
I know my LEDs in my house won't go as low as
Yeah.
my incandescent will.
I'm not a light fixture expert. That's not my area of expertise, but I can tell you that in the sign industry, And like I say, we're always looking for more cost-efficient and energy-saving ways to light signage. And simply, that is not attainable today.
Yes, Jim.
Just so I understand, I know I see the definition for what a nit is and then what we have for illumination. So what you're proposing is, Craig, that the brightness of a sign is not attainable as 150 nits because you can't get it that low. So-
And still illuminate the sign.
Okay. So if we had it at 400 minimum, it's still not going to be a glaring
Oh,
issue.
I was looking at that the wrong way then.
350 to 400 is a standard light output for a fixed sign. Now, electronic displays are different. That's a totally different technology.
So if you have a monument-style sign, that's a digital display, this is what we're talking about.
No,
No, that's something entirely different.
that's handled under electronic message centers.
Okay.
This is just standard fixed main identification cabinets.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we change the 150 to 350 and the 200 to 400, at least to get it out there.
Okay, there's an amendment on the floor to change 150 to 350 and 200 to 400. Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second it.
We have a amendment by Paul, seconded by Knut, to move the 150 to 350 and the 200 to 400. Council?
Just a point of clarification, this would apply to all signs, so it would apply to electronic message centers, billboards, digital billboards.
Except we use a different unit of measure for electronic message centers according to the ordinance. It's 0.3-foot candles above ambient light condition.
Under 2D.
If you'll look at D, under electronic message centers, at no time will it exceed 0.3-foot candles above natural ambient light conditions. Those two those two, to be honest with you, are going to be very, very close. Very close.
Katie?
And just before that, it does state electronic message center signs not exceed a brightness level of 5,000 nits during daytime hours and 500 nits between sunset and sunrise. So we are essentially allowing, am I too loud?
No, I'm not loud enough.
Oh, no, sorry. So we're essentially allowing electronic message centers to be brighter as what is currently here for the amendment, to be the 300 and 400,
And just-
350 and 400.
And just to clarify that, electronic message centers must display against bright sunshine. Your standard sign cabinets are not on during that time period. So therefore, there's no need for them to have to go to those levels. It's a totally different technology that's used in a completely different way. So when you're competing against bright sunshine, your nit levels are going to increase in order to compete and be visually effective in that scenario. But your main sign cabinets, they're never lit during the day. So they don't have that challenge.
Yes.
Yes, so I am totally ignorant when it comes to understanding what we're talking about here. At face value, going from 150 to 350 in whatever increment this is and 400 seems to be a significant leap. Is it? I mean, when you're talking, is this something that is going to be highly visibly, noticeably different between a 150 to a 350 or a 150 to a 400?
What you see out there right now is you're pushing, that's 350 to 400. That's what you see currently.
Okay.
This is not an increase. You're making the assumption that the 150 to 200 reference is accurate. And I'm making the assertion it is not accurate to begin with. If you're starting that assertion is correct to begin with, I'm saying it's misinformed.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one more for
Yes.
Craig. If we, if it went through as it is with 150 and 200, then we're saying that many of the signs that are lit today would just be dark.
They'd have to be, because they couldn't be put forth in the condition that they're in. The thing you have to understand, there are lots of different custom signs. Some will meet these standards. For example, if you look at the new sign down at Dash Park, it's probably down in that 150 to 200 level. If you look at a standard sign, I'm trying to think of something right offhand.
What about the Blue Moon sign coming up from La Crosse down there by the railroad
Well,
tracks?
let's take Shadow Run Motel, that pylon sign there. That's gonna push 350 to 400 nits. And that's a standard white face sign cabinet. So when you start looking at 150 to 200, what you're really doing is saying you can't have that type of sign, and I don't think we've gone there. That's not a place I think we want to go. So allowing something that's more standard out there, I think is the right thing to do. That would be my advice to you.
Does this change any of the wording, or would it require changing any of the wording as far as the amount of light that would bleed over, I guess, into residential areas? Because there's limits inside of here. Would they also have to be adjusted for this?
I don't think so.
Okay.
This is not, I think you need to put it in perspective again. This is not the substantial change that the numbers would indicate. It just isn't.
I don't know. All I know
Yeah.
is like, wow, it's a 200%.
The reality is that most of the signs out there right now fit this. You know, and LEDs replacing fluorescent lighting. This is what's generally produced.
Jim?
Just for anybody who might be listening, the difference what we're talking about here is, say, for example, the sign that's in front of the Omni Center is a digital sign. The sign in front of the American Legion would be exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
So there's a difference between the digital monument style and the sign that you might see that the American Legion has on Sand Lake Road, and that's what we're talking about right here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that clarifies it a lot for me, because I really had no.
This has nothing to do with electronic displays, nothing at all.
Okay.
Okay, let's vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment to move from 150 to 350 and from 200 to 400, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention. The motion carries now, or excuse me, the amendment carries. Now the motion as amended. Discussion. Hearing, yes.
Just a point of clarification, does the original motion approve the language in the packet or the language in the packet with the change that was in front of you?
I did not you're right, I did not stipulate that, Amanda, as to the changes that were highlighted here. So would I have to make an amendment to my original motion?
I think it would clear it up.
Okay. I'll make that amendment then. We were handed a copy of changes to the UDC, and I'd like to amend my motion to include the changes that were handed to us tonight that are highlighted in yellow.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's an amendment by Jim Banash, seconded by Knut Tempe to include the changes that we were handed tonight that are highlighted in yellow that will go along with the packet tonight. All in our discussion on that? Yes, Katie?
I just wanted to describe what is highlighted so people are aware of it since it's not in the packet.
Okay.
On page, it says 15 of 27, we clarified the distances. Essentially, 7A is giving you a distance where you can do a digital sign. You would need a conditional use permit if you are within 250 feet and 350 feet. So there's this 100-foot buffer, essentially, where you would be allowed to come into the Plan Commission to get a conditional use permit to do a digital digital billboard, thank you, which you cannot do today. And then we also have additional notifications, which is greater than our standard conditional use permit, which is why it is listed here, and also noting that notification of the public hearing and proof of mailing has to be provided by the sign applicant, and they have to give that to the city. On the following page, 16 of 17, C2, we're now stating that digital billboards must be at least 5,280 feet, 1 mile from another digital billboard. Previously, it was along the same line of sight, and this is just saying a 1,000-foot buffer from one digital billboard to another digital billboard, that's where you can have it in those locations. 1 mile, excuse me, from one digital billboard to another digital billboard, essentially as the crow flies. And number 4, we had modified this from the previous meeting, where it's essentially stating public service announcement, digital billboards shall display up to 10 holds or flip messages annually. So the city could do essentially up to 10 advertising for 10 city events every year, and then each hold or flip to occur once a minute for 1 week to hit that advertising blitz before our events to try and publicize those free of charge. So that is what the proposal is for the amendment.
Stephen?
I have, I guess, 2 things. First off, the really easy one, it's really a happy, glad comment more than anything else, but it would condense the paragraph Charlie 3, C3, technology. I'm not seeing a need for that entire first sentence, honestly, and instead of any other, you just say any new technology that complies with the standards. Otherwise, again, even just mentioning LED and everything else, you could be painting yourself in the corner of current existing technology. Just leave it very general, as long as it complies with the standards.
Steve, I think you're right. That kind of ties us to current technology, and that may change at some point in time in the future. And I think rather than pigeonhole ourselves, I think
Just strike it.
I think you're is right on the money.
Okay. The other comment I have is on the highlighted change that Katie just mentioned, also page 16, C2, with the new 1 mile standard. I guess I understand the mile. I also understand the line of sight. I think there's a similar intent behind them all. The question I have is, 1 mile is a pretty significant distance, and you certainly could have a significant terrain feature in between. I mean, the intent is so that you don't have compounding brightness and distraction for drivers and everything else, I'm assuming. But, I mean, we've got some cliffs in this area. I don't know if it would apply to any of the interstates, where I think most of these limitations on distance probably would put them anyway. I don't know. But does it, if there's an area inside of the limits of the city that has a significant terrain feature in between the two where they can't be seen anyway, how does that impact negatively? If it's in, say, 4,000 feet? Or would they just have to come to the board and ask for some type of
So why have it why not have it less than 1 mile from one digital
If
billboard to another?
they can't, if where the proposed second one can't be seen from the first one anyway.
Well, we have more than just one, so it would have to actually meet it. So we have one today, we have another one coming, and this would essentially allow a third or a fourth, depending on where it would go. So you'd have to try and measure it from all three and kind of triangulate it. So we did it as, originally when the digital billboard ordinance went into effect, they didn't want any additional. They wanted one and we're done. And we had another one come in, and we are, through the conditional use permit, now allowing the potential for an additional or more digital billboards to come in. But this is essentially trying to hold what the original intent of
Okay.
the ordinance from 2012 was in effect and carry it forward.
All right.
Skip?
I have a question. Are any that happen to be in conflict with these currently, are they grandfathered in?
Yes.
So they don't, so anything that's up now won't, because I was just gonna ask Craig, down there around the Dairy Queen, we have a whole number of signs there. It seems like we'd have that conflict already existing there.
No, those aren't digital billboards. Those are electronic message centers. Those are on-premise versus off-premise signage. This refers, the area we're talking about right now is strictly billboards. That's off-premise.
Okay,
So that has nothing to do with on-premise electronic message centers.
okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Colonel? Do you have a question?
No,
Comment?
no.
You do too, come on.
No, it's okay. It doesn't actually need to be said. It's in here. We're good.
Okay. Anybody else?
So are you proposing an amendment to reduce?
Yeah,
to
remove
the
that one
language of
sentence, and, yeah.
3?
I'll propose an amendment. I'd like to propose an amendment that on page 16C3, under digital billboards, that under technology, the first sentence be struck in its entirety, and that the second sentence be changed with the second word being changed from any other to any new technology that complies with the performance standards, including maximum brightness as set forth in the sign ordinance as permitted.
Mayor, we're technically in discussion on one proposed amendment right now.
Okay.
So I think we would trust the proposed amendment, unless he's making an amendment to the amendment.
Hold it a minute, let me just think this through. Yes, we are double bagging or double billing our amendments right now. So let's first vote on the amendment of including the highlighted elements, okay,
Original motion.
to the original motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention? Okay, so it is amended again. Now, Colonel.
All right, I'd like to propose an amendment based on page 16 of 27, C, digital billboards, subparagraph 3, technology, that the first sentence be struck in its entirety, and that the second sentence be changed in the second word so that it reads, instead of any other, it reads any new technology that complies with the performance standards, et cetera.
Okay, the motion is by Colonel Knott. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Paul. Discussion. Jim?
Just, if council could answer this, does that in any way change the technology? It looks we're giving it a definition, because it's technology, period, and then that sentence. Does that in any way change the meaning of C3 or change the substance of what it is that it's trying to accomplish?
If I might offer a slight amendment, I would just have it strike the word other and not add the word new in there, so that it simply reads any technology that complies with the performance standards.
All right, I'll withdraw my amendment and propose a new amendment.
Okay, would you state that again, counsel?
I got it. So the new amendment would be strike the first sentence of paragraph C3 technology and strike the second word of the second sentence so that the second sentence now reads any technology that complies, et cetera.
Got it. Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Motion made, or amendment offered by Colonel Knott, seconded by Paul, to strike Charlie 3, the first sentence, and the second word of the second sentence, so that that will now read technology. Any technology that complies with the performance standards, including maximum brightness as set forth in this sign ordinance, is permitted. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions.
Aye.
One abstention. Amendment carries. Now we will vote on the original motion thrice amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention. So moved.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn by Jim,
I'll second that, Jim.
second by Craig. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Aye.
Why?
We stand adjourned at 7:32. You're not supposed to stand once you second something.
I can't do that, can I?